randoms keep getting jobs. Don't worry about it. I'ma say, I can't wait to say it. I love it. I love it. Go.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the NotBland Show. I am your host, Dujane Bland, and of course, we're powered by Everything Nitro and SportsJourney.com and Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. So this is going to be a great show. You're going to learn a lot of stuff here. I'm glad that we've had this opportunity. Things grow around here. What's going on, Lonnie? Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you got your popcorn ready. Briar Star, hope you got your popcorn ready. Yes, I will let Pete know that you said hi. Pete, he says hi. And without further ado, we're going to bring in Pete Richards. He is the coordinating producer for Fox Sports, and he has a lot to do with your NHRA On Fox Broadcast. Pete, welcome to the show.
Dujane, thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'm really excited to join you and your audience tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast, and I know that the audience really wants to know how all this stuff goes together. With a Fox broadcast, how much work is done before the cameras ever start rolling on Q1 or any, wherever you guys decide that you will be picking up live coverage?
So that is a great question. Our tight-knit group of the NHRA and Fox team, the core team, was probably 15 to 20 of us. We work on these shows every day. And by every day, I mean on Christmas, I'll get a text from Loans or Tony Pedregon or Bruno or Amanda about, hey, we should do a such on this guy. We're always thinking about the show, And now that we're in the season, it is a 7-day-a-week thing. We just got off a conference call because the Chicago race is this weekend, and we're just coming off of the 2 4-wides, and now we're kind of resetting back into 2-wide mode. And there is a tremendous amount of work that goes into the show before we even get on our airplanes on Thursday or drive to the racetrack. So we're always thinking about it, always working on it.
Now, with the broadcast, I know there's different camera angles. I know that there have been some questions on the placement of the 1320 cam. Is there anything in the works to adjust the camera and have a 1,000-foot camera as well?
It's tricky because we are sort of restricted by the racetrack in a lot of ways as to where the cameras go, for example. So we can't really put a tower in a position where, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Everybody but Nitro goes to 1320. So we are sort of restricted by safety, by logistics, where we can put the camera. We have typically a typical race that we do. We will have 3 cameras down the track. We'll have a jib at the top end. We'll have handhelds in the pits. We'll have robo cameras, which are little. I mean, these cameras, I'm not kidding you. Everything you do with this camera is this big. Lens, transmitter, everything. We put these cameras where it's not safe to put a person. So you'll see sometimes we'll do a replay sequence where it's nothing but what we call speed shots. It's low cameras that are literally attached to the wall. We have a camera that's just on the other side of the Christmas tree shooting back up. So if somebody gets a whole shot, we can see the lights and see who gets off quick. We have as many cameras in as many places as we can these days. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not an expert on the technical side of things. I'm more on the content side of things.
Yes.
So I can't really speak too intelligently as to that, but we are always looking at ways to improve the viewer experience, to give them looks that they haven't had before. In the last from the middle of last year on, we've been able to put cameras in the pits. We have like a fixed camera that we can hang in somebody's pits. So all the time we can see when they're working on the car, when they're bringing in, coming out. So it's a constantly moving target. And we have a team of technical experts that are constantly thinking about the best way to deliver the product to our viewers.
Now, talking about the content, who decides what coverage will be done during said particular weekend? Back in the day, Diamond P used to have, they would cover some sportsmen in between rounds, or, you had ESPN would maybe cover alcohol classes or whatever. Who makes that decision?
Well, there's a few factors that go into that. One is the broadcast time available for a given weekend. For example, this weekend in Chicago, we have 5 shows over the course of the 3 days. We do a qualifying show. If I can give a pitch for our air schedule right now.
Yes,
we
go
have
ahead.
A qualifying show Friday night at 7:30 Eastern. Then Saturday, we have the Pro Stock All-Star Call-Out. That's a 90-minute show that will be on Saturday night at 7 Eastern. Sunday, we have 3 shows. Final qualifying airs Sunday at 1. And then the final round, we are splitting into 2 shows. We have a 1-hour show that's only the first round. That'll be at 4 o'clock. And then the finals will be at 10 o'clock. We're kind of sandwiching. There's a NASCAR all-star race in between it. So we're sort of taking advantage of the fact that we're going to have a good audience. But to go back to your question, it all depends on the track schedule. It all depends. We have, like, Lucas Oil has their own show. Lucas Oil Sportsman has their own shows. ProMod has their own show. A few weeks ago at Phoenix, we featured ProMod in the regular show, what we would call the Camping World show, just to give those guys a little bit of love. Everybody that works on the show, from the head of television for the NHRA, a guy named Steve Righteous, who I work with hand in hand, and we sort of take turns producing the shows, to all of our announcers, to all the technicians, to the people in the truck who nobody knows their names. We have our technical director has been doing shows for 35 years, since John Force was a boy. We have camera guys who came up when Big Daddy Don Garlitz and Don the Snake Perdome were in their heyday. Everybody has such a passion for drag racing, and not just the top classes. We love all of it. So we try and find ways to incorporate as much as we can. We have limitations as the length of the show, how much. There's a lot of sales items, to be honest, that we have certain things that we have to do. And as a producer, I call that a gotta have to. We gotta have to do this, and we gotta have to do that. And we try and make the best decision editorially so that those sales features are relevant to what we're doing in the show.
Makes sense.
Oftentimes, we'll show sportsman stuff as part of the show. We'll show the factory stock showdown. We'll show the top alcohol classes, the finals, at least when we can. It's a juggling act every week. And I like to say that over the course of a 20 race season, we typically do 3 to 5 shows a weekend. So we have somewhere around 70 or 80 shows, and we will do those 70 or 80 shows 70 different ways. There's no set format for how we do it. It's based on the timing. It's based on how long the show is and what classes we have to get in. So we try our best to make sure that we as fans would be satisfied, because we feel like since we are fans, we can best present what the folks at home want to see. And I know that we can't make everybody happy all the time, but I think our first job is to service the fan. And I think as long as we keep that as job one, we'll do our job.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a hard juggling act. And this year, for several races, you guys have had to battle weather. How does that encroach on your production of the show? And how does that in turn cause you guys to really have to kind of step up and do some things a little, kind of cram some things in where you wouldn't have had to do that if it wasn't for the weather?
Weather is the one thing that nobody can control. And the day that somebody figures out how to weatherproof a drag strip so that we can race rain or shine or hail as we had in Pomona, or cold as we have a lot of mornings, that person will make millions. But it's just, okay, so Breyer, just my man Breyer. Thank you, Breyer. Hello. I'm going to talk about Topeka, because Topeka was the hardest and craziest and most fun show we've ever done. And it was my week to produce, so it was my deal. But to get back to your question, rain's a nightmare because we have our times where we have to be on the air. And on a typical Sunday, just talking about the final show, we have a 3-hour show. That's our normal allotment, whether it's 3 hours all at once or if we do an hour, a first round and do the finals later. We have 3 hours.
Right.
It takes about 5.5 hours to run a professional drag race from start to finish. So typically what will happen is, and I'll just use a normal race weekend as an example. Normally the first round starts at 11 o'clock, right? First round's at 11. It takes an hour to run nitro. It takes 45 minutes to run pro stock and bikes. Then you do the turnaround. You come back. Second round's at 1. Semifinals are 2:30, 2:45, and the finals are like 4:15, 4:30, right?
Right.
If it rains, and they can't start racing till say 2 o'clock, or like in Topeka last year, 3 o'clock, we still have to have content ready. So the Topeka show last year, for those that don't remember, Topeka is in the middle of Kansas, and it's in the middle of summer. It's the second weekend of August, and it's hot, and it's thunderstorm alley. And we had a very stormy weekend, and Sunday morning when you wake up and you look out your hotel room window and it's still dark and you're like, oh man. And then you check your radar and it's nothing but a blob. And we thought, well, we're not racing today, right? And that happens sometimes too. And when that happens, that's a whole other thing. If the race gets rained out on Sunday, then typically they'll run the race on Monday if they can, or they will kick it to the next weekend. If they haven't started the race at all, or if they haven't gotten to a certain point, they'll usually come back on Monday. They did that at Reading last year. I think it's the last time we did that.
Yeah.
And that's a nightmare scenario too, because we still have to do some content to fill some of our air window. We don't want to just give it all up and run last year's race, for example. We try and fill some of it, but then you have to have some of your crew come back and cover the race on Monday. And then we have to find an air window on Monday that we haven't planned for. It's a nightmare on every level. So Topeka last year, the weather's bad. We were like, all right, we're going to put together an hour-and-a-half show. We've got enough content in the can, which we say in the can means already recorded, and interviews and planning for the fact that, okay, it might be a rainy day. Did a bunch of interviews. We can put an hour and a half together, no problem. So we did this hour-and-a-half show. And then at like 1:30, we get word from race control, hey, the rain is moving out. We're going to be ready to race by 3. Okay, that's great news that we're not going to have to come back, but we've already emptied our bucket of content that we have done. So we basically played our hour-and-a-half rain show and then came up live at around 3 o'clock or 3:30. I can't remember exactly what time it was. But then they weren't ready to race. The track wasn't quite, it was 99% done, but you know how it is in drag racing. It's got 100% ready. So we have to fill. And then I get the run orders. And typically when I'm producing a show, I will have a very detailed format. Okay, we're going to do this off the top. We're going to go to Bruno for an interview. Amanda's going to talk to this person. We've got a graphic. Brian is going to talk to Tony about this. We go down the list. And then we list the races. Okay, so typically we'll do 3 segments to be top fuel. So, okay, we'll do 2 pairs in the first segment, 3 pairs, 3 pairs. When they're ready to go racing in Topeka, I had the back of the ladder sheet and I scribbled by hand what the pairings for round 1 was, and we just covered the race. And it was so great. It was so great because we didn't have to lay out. We didn't have to wait for everything. We were following the race as it went. Fox had plenty of airtime for us. They're like, keep going as long as you want. So then what happened was we go through the first round and everything's great. And the first round, okay, now we got 45 minutes before top field round 2 is ready to go. What do we do? So I was producing. Steve Righteous, the head of TV for NHRA and the normal producer, he coordinated, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to send cameras to this pit. We're going to do an interview here. We're going to send Bruno here. We're going to do this and that. And it was the most exhilarating and exhausting day we've ever done. We were on the air, counting the hour and a half we did, and then we did the whole 5.5 hours live. We were on the air for almost like 7.5, 8 hours straight. And we covered everything and moved down the track. Sportsman racing. I can't remember if it was Pro Mod. We had factory stock. We had this. We had that. I think Factory X maybe was on the track that weekend. We showed it all. And then by the time we got to the finals, you're just covering the race. Now you have 4 more pairs. It's the finals. And then you see like lightning in the distance. You're like, oh, my God. No, man, this is not happening. Racing gods, God, weather, not happening. We got the 4 finals in. It was so great. And the best part of the whole night was it was dark by then. It was like 8 or 9 o'clock. Amanda had grabbed a bottle of champagne off the stage and brought it back to the TV compound. We stagger out of the truck. At one point, so when you go to commercial break, when you're live, it's a 2-minute break. You have 2 minutes. And if you're sitting in the chair the whole time, there are certain biological processes that need to be taken care of. Let's just say that. So in Topeka, the TV truck is here. The booth is here because we call it from what we call our C unit. And the porta-johns are over here. So one time we go to break, 3, 2, 1. Okay, break, 2 minutes. I come tearing on the steps. Here comes Tony Pedregon coming out the other booth. And we nearly, we had a slam on the brake to avoid a collision that would have been catastrophic for everybody. So we got through it. It was great. We said that was so much fun. That was very fulfilling. Let's never do that again. Let's have good weather all the time. So it was certainly a fun way to do it. But it was crazy.
Now, this is a good question. Have the drivers ever shot down an idea you guys have had? He said Drag Racing Mayhem says he remembers when Brian Loans talked about the driver ranking system and his show, and he's saying that the driver shot the idea down. Does that ever happen?
I mean, I feel like we have a pretty good relationship with all the drivers because I think at the end of the day, we are partners. Everybody, yes, Lonnie, cue up, man. They walked away. Exactly. We have to be partners, right? We have to respect them and they have to respect us. And there are certain things that we have to do at certain times that they may not like. And they do things that maybe we don't like, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to grow the sport of drag racing. And in my job, I actually work for Fox. I'm the only person on the production that doesn't work for NHRA. I work for Fox, and I have to make sure that the NHRA is happy because they're our long-term broadcast partners, and I have to make sure the network's happy. So there's lots of constituencies that have to be satisfied. The driver ranking system, I know we kind of floated it a few years ago, and the mechanics of getting it done, it was very time consuming. It's very it's an unwieldy beast. I put together something last year, almost like a performance index, and the time it took to do that was intense. And honestly, we've kind of came to a group consensus is that there are ways to measure like race wins and the point system, and we highlight things. I've got the show from Charlotte on, and we did a thing on who's got the best ET on Sundays, things like that. We have ways to spotlight different things besides ET, reaction time, and miles per hour, and I feel like we do a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, I agree. You talked about the crew. So NHRA supplies some of the crew. Why not Fox have their own group of people to do, different jobs as far as top end, different things of that nature?
Now that's a great question. Basically, because when Fox took over the NHRA in 2016, there was a whole crew of experts, right? Fox had never done drag racing before.
That's true.
We had a whole crew, and just the nature of our production agreement with the NHRA is that there's a financial agreement between the two parties, but part of the deal is the NHRA produces the show for Fox or FS1. Sometimes you're on FS2, but for Fox Sports. And as part of the deal, there's a person, which is me, and I'm so thankful that it's me because I love the sport and I love the people, that is a participant in the thing. And typically in the role that I have as a coordinating producer, my job is to coordinate the production with the network. So big picture, it's making sure all the commercials get played, making sure all the promos get in, making sure that it looks and sounds like a Fox show, making sure that when, I don't know, John Force drops the F-bomb at the top end because he's so excited, not that ever happens, that someone is there to make the decision that no, that has to be bleeped out. And sometimes when we're live, it doesn't get bleeped out.
Right.
It's just one of those things. But so my initial responsibility was that as a coordinating producer. And my boss, Frank Wilson, who's the vice president of production for Fox Sports, he oversees me and several other racing series. So I report to him. He comes to a bunch of the races. We're all tight with everybody, and I sort of, as time went on, Steve and I kind of came to the agreement is not the right word, the realization that I could probably help out in certain ways. Like I can produce a show. If we have a Monday show and somebody needs to pit produce or tape produce or AD a show, we had a situation last year. The lady who ADs our show is named Melissa Armstrong, and she is probably the most irreplaceable person on our crew because Melissa keeps track of the time. And when you're doing a show that's not live and you're basically building a jigsaw puzzle, right? Or you have a plane that takes off and it's only enough built to take off. You have to finish building that thing before it can land. And her job is to build that. She keeps track of the time. She makes sure that the producer knows if he's heavy, which means you've done more content time than you intended, or light, which means you need to fill some more time. Irreplaceable. We're going to a race. I get a call. There's been I don't want to get into the situation. We have to fill this position on a short notice. And so I had to jump in an AD. And it was the most terrified I've ever been in my life. I've been in television for 30 years almost.
Yeah.
It was something I'd never done. And Steve's like, because we're talking about, what can we do? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, we will figure out a way to get to this again. And by golly, we did. And I had stopwatches and keeping track. And it ended up being fine. And it was a race that we did. It was in Dallas last year. And of course, at certain times of the year, we start being on tape and we catch ourselves live, which means we start producing the show and say if the show is on 2 to 5 Eastern time. We do the finals at 4:40 and we're live. We are actually live for the finals.
Yeah.
And that particular show, there was a bunch of delays. I don't think there was weather, but the track, in Texas, there's everything in the world is on the track. We were behind, so we have to fill. And now we've gone from doing a tape show, which is one way of timing it, to a live show, which is a totally different skill set. And I felt like I got my AD associate directing merit badge that weekend. Never did. Again, I'm like, it was fun. Let's never do that again. So long answer to your question. The team that produces NHRA on Fox they're experts. They're the best at what they do. We have the best. We have the best tape guys. We have some of the best graphics people. We have some of the best camera people. We have, like I said, we have guys that have been on the shows for 30 plus years. And Fox did not want to come in and reinvent the wheel. They wanted to take advantage of the advantages that were there. And as time has gone on, we've refined our crew a little bit. And, it's like a race team. You sometimes you have some turnover and sometimes you have people that you want to stay forever. And right now, I feel like our crew is as good as it's ever been. And we have a bunch of people that love making TV together. And it's not an exaggeration to say that your TV family is a family. I mean, you spend more time with your TV family than your real family sometimes. So you better like and get along with the people that you work with. Otherwise, it's a miserable experience.
Exactly.
And I mean, to say that the best broadcast teams are the ones that truly are friends and get along, it is 100% true. Brian and Tony, you watch the shows and they bust on each other. First of all, there's always respect. Tony is a 2-time champion. He's won 39 races. He is an expert. He is one of the all-time greats. And Brian always respects Tony, always. And Tony respects Brian because Brian is the number one. There's not even a number 2 drag racing announcer in the world today. Not even
right.
So they respect each other. But boy, oh boy, do they get on it, right? They get on each other. And they are exactly that way. If we're going to dinner and we're trying to find a place to eat on Friday night, we're qualifying at 9 o'clock where we're going to eat, it's the same way. So it's great. So what you see on TV is what you get. Everybody's tight. Amanda has done it for 7 or 8 years now. She's great. She does a lot of other things for Fox. And I see the question that Walt has asked, how hectic is all that stuff on weekends? That Bruno is also racing and winning championships. It's hectic.
Yeah,
but
I bet.
How many broadcast teams have a current world champion as part of their deal?
Not too many.
Ours, and I don't know. So when Bruno's racing, everybody has to kind of tighten their belt a little bit and pitch in. And Bruno, I mean, honest to God, we were doing a race last year, and Bruno's at the starting line doing interviews as he does. Our typical arrangement is Amanda's at the top end, Bruno at the starting line. This year we brought on Jordan Vandergriff, and I'll talk a little bit about him later.
Yeah.
But Bruno is racing, and Bruno is going around. And the way it works is Bruno is multi-time comp eliminator world champion and comp run. So they run nitro and they run pro stock and they run bikes, and then the sportsman stuff goes. So Bruno's rounds are basically when we're not going, but Bruno's in the final, right? We're not going to say, "Oh, sorry, man, we need you." We find a way, right? We find a way. And Bruno's done television. He's been with Fox, I think, since Fox started doing it, if not before. I mean, there's a tremendous value to having someone who is not only a competitor but a champion. And yeah, he's it's cool. And so the awesome thing was he wins the race, and gets out of the car and he's in his fire suit and he's excited, he's in tears, and maybe he punched the championship, and now Amanda's interviewing Bruno. Hey, congratulations. So the script is flipped, right?
Yeah.
The script is flipped. He's being interviewed. So yeah, it's definitely a family partnership, and it's we've been together. This current group has been together. This is our 6th year. I've been with Fox and Speed Channel before that for 20 years or more. And I've been involved in a lot of different races series. I moved to NHRA on Fox in 2019. So it's the start of our 6th year. Can't believe we've been going that long. And God willing, I get to keep doing it. Keep doing the rest of my career. It's a great spot.
Are you able to do that job remotely?
Some positions can be done remotely. Some positions have to be racetrack. My job, I mean, if I had to do it remotely, I could. But I feel like there's a great value to being at the racetrack and having time to go out and participate in the interviews in the pits and talk to the announcers and this and that. We have some places on our crew can be done remotely. And I don't want to say what they are because I don't want to
give up
the magic
secrets
of television.
Yes, don't give up the secrets.
But most of the time, we're all there on site. Like in any business, television is looking at ways to innovate and looking at ways to, save money. It's a fact that it's expensive to make television just as it's expensive to do a podcast. Not quite as expensive as television.
Right.
Running a race team. Some things you look at ways to do that better. And I love being at the racetrack though. And if I had to do my races remotely, I would do it because I love the shows, but I like being at the track. I like when you open the door and there's the door to the TV truck, which by the way, the TV truck they place all over the place. Sometimes, like at Charlotte, we're far from the start line. We're like up the hill and across the street. It's still loud, but it's not that loud. Some tracks, we're in Chicago this week. We're like 20 feet off the guard wall at about the finish line. It is loud as can be. And sometimes you forget you're at the racetrack and you open the door to the truck and you go down the stairs and it scares the daylights out of you. But it's like, I love the smell of it. I love the sound of it. I love just being at the racetrack, man. There's nothing like it.
So I have an idea for this. I'm not spewing that on here, but I really like this question here about having an idea brought up of a weekly NHRA show. I'll say the idea is centered around kind of the NASCAR race day or race day hub that they have a weekly show. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not giving up any more ideas about what I think, but I really do think there is a place for that type of a weekly show. What do you think?
What I think as Pete, the NHRA fan who loves drag racing, yeah, man, let's do it. Let's do more. Let's do more. Let's do it better. The realities of being on an all sports network. I would say that if it was back in the day and we were Speed Channel and we were 24/7 Motorsports, I would say that there is a much better chance of that happening. But we are on a network that has everything, right? We have NASCAR, we have college basketball and football, we got the NFL, we got everything. We have Major League Baseball. So the fact that we have as much content on FS1 and Fox as we have, I think is a great thing. There are other platforms. NHRA.TV does a great job, and they have tons of space. And NHRA also has a fast channel, which has room for lots of things. Lately, speaking of our show, we have started doing Brian's NHRA Insider podcast every week at the track for an hour, and that streams. And at Gainesville, we actually put that on the air. So that was kind of like a dipping our toe in that a little bit. And I know we're looking at ways to do more things and maybe get away from the track a little bit. And it's like, it's not something that in my position that I can even say that, oh, well, it's likely. It's something that we always are looking at. And in my role, my job is to promote this stuff to my bosses. Like, hey, you know, if we could get this show in this time slot, we might have a better chance of drawing big viewership. And Scott here asked me a question. Viewership is up. What do you attribute to your success? There's a lot of factors, Scott, to that. Some of it is the racing is as compelling as it has been in I don't know how long. I mean, who's going to win the top field race this week? You could literally say anybody of 10 or 12 guys could win it, guys and women.
Yeah.
Funny car, maybe not 10 or 12, but it's not out of their own possibility. Like Alexander won at Norwalk last year, and they don't even race all the time, you know. In pro stock, it's a little bit more heavy at the top. It's compelling. It's in the storylines and this drama. Now, have we benefited from having good air windows? Absolutely. Yeah. And we look at that strategically. We look at like, where can we place our shows that has the best chance of having eyeballs on it? We've had a great time this year being what we call adjacent to a NASCAR race, either before or after. If there's a NASCAR Cup race, and we know that 3.5, 4 million people are watching a NASCAR Cup race, it is in our best interest to air as close to that as possible. If we're right after it, at Charlotte, we had a great scenario. The Cup race was at Dover, I think. Cup race ended at 5:45, and they did 15 minutes of post-race, did the winner thing, spraying the champagne. Here's the final results, and now let's go right to Charlotte for NHRA. Even though we weren't live, and as a live TV guy, doing it live is always it's great, but to get the most eyeballs on our show, let's be after that NASCAR race. And we've had that 3 or 4 times, and we have that again this weekend where we have 2 shows. We have 2 shows, and one is leading into the NASCAR All-Star race, and one is on the back end of it. So hopefully we catch those viewers on the front end, and we get some of them to stay. And the fact that Tony Stewart is racing now, Tony Stewart, only probably the biggest name in motorsports in every form. I don't want to age myself, but I grew up in Indiana in the early 90s, and I worked for a television station. And one night we had this Sunday night talk. It's like a expanded sports show.
Yeah.
Get a phone call. Hey, our guest is at the door. Can you go meet him? And there's this little chubby kid, Tony Stewart. So I've known Tony Stewart that long.
Wow.
When he was racing USAC and winning championships at the age of 17 and 18. And now he's in Top Fuel. Can you believe that? Tony Stewart wants to come racing with us. And I think he moves the needle. He's the guy that whenever he does something, and if we can say, hey, everybody, Tony Stewart is going rounds today. You might want to stick around and watch. That has such value because he's a guy, you know, if you go outside the world of NHRA, like I would say my wife is not a big motorsports fan. She's into drag racing now that I'm doing it. She knew who John Force was, right? She's going to know, she might know who Leah was. She's going to know Erica Enders, but the average person is not going to know our superstars until they get exposed to them, right?
Exactly.
When my mom was alive, she would always ask, so who won the race? Mom, you don't even know any of these people. Oh, John Force won. That's cool. I know who John Force is. People that don't know drag racing know who Tony Stewart is. People who are fans of open wheel racing, NASCAR, dirt track racing, they all know who Tony Stewart is. So we can bring all those people under our big tent and hopefully make it bigger and grow our sport. So that is such a good thing for us. And the fact that he's starting to go a little bit now. He's made 2 semifinals in a row. He was in the final quad at Charlotte or Vegas. One of the 4 wides run together. But anyway, the fact that they got that program going well now, it's a good thing because we know that's a good car. Leah was this far from winning the championship last year in that car. So it's they had some issues to figure out. You know, Tony is a bigger person than she is in terms of body size and mass, and that's just a fact. And they've got the thing going, and I think that's exciting to see where that's going to go the rest of the year.
It really is. We got Tim Fabrisi in the building. He'll be up next. We're going to get some more education. My last question for you, Pete. They're starting this process of the betting. And Alt is getting involved. This is huge for the sport.
It is. There's no what sport is more custom made for betting. Listen. I don't want to give stories away, but there are people up in the stands that there are a lot of singles or $5 bills, and two cars go to the line. It's like, well, who you got? Well, I got Hagen. Well, I got Caps, or I got this guy. I got that guy. It's happening.
Yep.
And I don't know if legitimize is the right word, because it's a fact. It's a head-to-head sport, right? It's me versus you, and which one gets to the finish line. Whether you deep stage or you play games in the line or whatever, or you do whatever, it's get to the finish line first, right?
Yep.
It lends itself so well to that. And I think it is exciting. And if you look at the way the sports landscape is these days, that's the way the world's going. I live in North Carolina, and we just got sports betting. I can take out my phone, and I'm a hockey fan. I'm an all sports fan. Hockey playoffs draw. I can bet on anything right now. I can bet on the NASCAR race. I can bet on a golf tournament. There could be a random tennis tournament in Shanghai. The two guys you've never heard of are playing each other, but you can bet on it, right?
Yeah.
It only draws interest.
And we're betting on pro wrestling, a predetermined sport.
Exactly right. Exactly. So I think the NHRA is very smart for getting involved and getting in the game, because you have to. It's a way that the sport is evolving, right?
Yeah.
You watch our races on Fox, the NASCAR races. We talk about point. It's not really point spreads, but it's the odds, right? Who's favored? Who's the underdog? It's a part of television now, and it's a part of sports now. And I think, not to say that there's ever shenanigans in our sport. Sometimes certain pairings come to the line, and you just kind of know who's going to win.
Yeah.
You just know what's up. I think this kind of takes that out of play, because I think you have to be above board, and I think you have to be in a situation where there are people that's all they do is regulate this sort of thing, because it can't be the way it always has been. It has to be something that is real. And
exactly.
I think this coming into the sport, I read the release today. It's a very exciting thing, and it's just another way the NHRA is going forward. It's a 21st century sport now. It has roots in the 20th century, in the 50s, in the 60s, and the 70s, but it is finding a way to grow as the sports landscape is growing, and that's just another way.
Yes, sir. Pete, it's been a blast, and
Dude,
we'll have to have you on again. We just scratched the surface of things.
I know.
So we'll have to have you on again later on in the year. Man, I really appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully there's no weather this weekend, and you guys have easy going for this broadcast for Fox.
It's supposed to be nice. We're excited, and everybody watching it, if you tune in, we'd be very appreciative. And again, thanks so much for having me. It's been great.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks for taking the time, man.
All right, see ya.
Pete Richards, everybody, and we're not going to waste our time here. We've got a really, really good one, another good one here. He is the co-crew chief of the man, the GOAT, John Force, the Peak Funny Car. It is Mr. Tim Fabrisi. How's it going, man?
It's going great. How about yourself today?
I'm doing great. I really enjoy having crew chiefs on. It's a time where fans can become educated, and you guys have had, like everybody, especially with the different track conditions that have kind of had been going on through the first quarter of the season. Right. Everybody's had their struggles with the racetrack. Could you tell us a little bit about how much of that can be a headache?
It could be a huge headache. We were lined up for the first round at Charlotte in lane 4, because in our minds, that was a preferable lane. We had good success there in the past, and then there was an incident in front of us, so that throws you a scramble. So you always have a backup and then another backup at a 4-wide race.
Right.
So you're always looking at the other lanes at the same time. You just hope for the lane you ultimately want, and then you have your second choice. But it can be a headache. It's a mind struggle, especially if you don't have lane choice. and you kind of prepare. We talk. The crew chiefs talk to each other online, and for the most part, we'll tell each other ahead of time, like, hey, we're going to go to the right lane. So they have their time to set up their deal. Now, that doesn't say at the last second, they don't change their mind and say,
Right.
nope, we're over there. Then you're like, I got to change my settings as fast as you can. If you have to change any flows or timers, you got to do it fast because you're prepared for this lane and now you're in 30 seconds over here and you got to go. So it could be a pain in the butt.
Yeah. With those changes, is there ever a point where you've been in the lane, and I'll even throw in the situation of you're a few cars back. You may be in the last session of top fuel, and you guys are going behind them, and you're a few cars back, and you prepared for a hot lane. You knew what lane you were going to go in, and then they changed the lane on you, and then there's cloud cover. So you were preparing for one thing, and now you have to set it up for something totally different. Is there ever a point where you set it up to go a number because you thought that it would do that based on, the data you had before?
Yep.
Now all of that's changed. Is there a point of no return where, look, we're probably not going to be able to reel this back in, and it's likely going to go out there and smoke the tires?
Yeah, there actually is a point of no return. We try to go no further than 3 pairs out of making our last clutch adjustment. We can do up to the water box because we have that time,
Right.
But so if we know we're in the left lane and it's a 100-degree track out, but there's clouds in and out, that cloud cover, especially if it's thick, it can drop it in 10 degrees in a heartbeat, especially if it's been ultimately cool overall and the track surface or the ground hasn't really heated up a whole lot. Right. So if there's a delay in front of you, you're in the water box, the top fuel's in front of us, we're in the water box next, and a big cloud comes over. Now they have a delay, and we don't really know how long the delay is. It's like, all right, well, the track just dropped 8 degrees. So we went from running a 395 to, well, the track yields a 90 or an 89 right now. Well, you can't adjust the clutch because if the starter says time to go, you can't be apart. It's pretty gentlemanly. If somebody's adjusting the car, the other guy will wait. They'll yell at you, start the car, and you won't. Everyone gets their fair turn. We want to race each other, but you don't want to hold them up because at some point someone's going to start and you're going to lose. You're going to lose that round. But at that last second, we can adjust tire pressure, and that's pretty much our last tool we can do. Or to get off the starting line, down the track, we can adjust flows up to the last second. Even after the burnout, we've come back from burnout, and Danny's opened up the toy box and adjust the flows because he just had a gut feeling that might not be good. Let's turn it down just a little bit.
Yeah, that seems to be that's one of those things where I think fans don't realize like how much goes into it right before you're going up to the line. The car has really, especially Charlotte, really seemed like it took off. Conditions didn't obviously warrant what you guys qualified at, but it definitely seems like this car is becoming more and more consistent as we get into this second race of the second quarter of the regular season.
It is, adding, unfortunately they had to park all the dragster, the second dragster we had. So Chris Cunningham came over our group and, he's been a champion many times over, and he's been with Jimmy Prockover and that team, and they funny car champions. So that just brings us more depth into the knowledge of, hey, maybe he looks at it different or has a different thought of what Danny I might have. So it just it deepens our thought train of it, and we'll bounce all the ideas off each other, and we'll come up with a conclusion. And so I think that's helped our consistency and get the car to run good because, 9 times out of 10, we're all agreeing on the same thing, but sometimes it just takes some different eyeballs or different knowledge set to get there.
Now, I know John is the master of deep staging. And I know sometimes you guys want to see that number on the board. Is there a time that in qualifying you have to remind him that, shallow stage and then when it's race day, all the bets are off? Like he pretty much does whatever he wants.
He's going to do whatever he wants anyway. He's down for doing it for so long. You can't train an old dog new tricks, right?
Right.
But he knows what he's doing, and we won't go in for qualifying, like just tickle that bulb. Let's get that ET for low qualifier, and then sometimes in a race day, if it's a 1-lane track, which sometimes it is, we need that lane choice. So like, just going shallow. We need a lane choice. Don't give it away. And we've been both ways before, but at the end of the day on Sunday, usually I go in there, I'm the last one to say something to him. I say, just do what you do. I don't care. Just win. Yeah, it's heartbreaking for the number on the board for us.
Right.
People who look at the stats, they know what the car did. So even other teams are like, yeah, you ran an 89, but the board only showed a 96. So, but the fans only see a 96. Like, oh, well, he got outrun. I was like, well, maybe he got beat, or that necessarily deep staging just kind of gives up some ET. But, Sunday, a win light's a win light. That's it.
That's a good one. How many Wallies does he have, and which race was your most memorable win?
How many does he have?
I think she was referring to you, Tim.
Oh, me? Well, shoot, I don't even know. I probably have, I don't know, around 30 or 40 over the years I've been John Force Racing. This is going into my 16th year over here.
Wow.
I'd say for me, my most memorable was, I'd say 2. My first win working over here was with Mike Neff in 2009 on the Ford Drive One car. And then John's 150th win. I mean, we fought that struggle for a long time. We finally broke through, and then we got the Indy win with him right after that. So, I mean, that was big. I mean, that's a pretty good milestone to be a part of forever. So,
indeed. Danny Hood is growing, man. What type of crew chief would you say that he is? Is he like a finesse guy? Is he really aggressive, or it kind of depends on the day, the conditions, and what have you?
He's been brought up by some of the best out. Austin Coyle, yes. Bernie Federle, Dean Antonelli. So he's been Mike Neff. He's been around so many great minds, and I think we work well because we're pretty much in a way opposite people. I am an aggressive. I am I'm stressed out about stuff, and he is so cool and collective over a nerve-wracking condition. Maybe he hides it, but I don't see it. But he just sums up all the data. He's like, well, this is what we're going to push. We're going to push a little hard, or we're going to try to go after it, and just running the car. I mean, he's just calm and cool, man. He has his outsources when between rounds, and the car's set. He'll turn on IndyCar, watch Graham run, or watch him golf, and him and Chris go golf. I'm just wired differently. But that's the great. You need the mom and the dad, and
exactly,
or whoever. I don't know, but that's what it takes to gel. So
good balance. And Courtney Anders, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it.
No, I appreciate your invite.
And Drag Racing Mayhem says, "What's your best John Force story?" There's so many.
So my best. Oh, my dog's getting in here. My best story. Oh man, best John story. I would have to say is we were in the water box in Las Vegas, and this had to have been 2010, and they pulled him for a drug screening, and he was nowhere to be found. And Austin Coyle was our crew chief at the time, him and Mike Neff. So I'm the one who strapped him in the car. I did the superchargers at the time, and I mean, the car is running on the racetrack. We're in the water box, and he is nowhere to be found. And I am stressing out. What are you doing? I mean, this was just a 2-wide race. And finally, we have the PA. Austin Coyle got on the radio and called on the PA system to NHRA and called him back to his car. He had to break out of the drug screening at the top end of the racetrack because they wouldn't let him leave because he couldn't go, right? So he finally got out there. He's like, I gotta go. So he came in and 2 seconds left, jumped in this car, strapped him in. And he's right now, as you can imagine, he's just wired because he had to barely get down here. He's in the car. He's focused up. He's going on about this and that. And I leaned in and I just said, hey, and this is my first year work for him himself on his car. I leaned in. I gave some choice words. I said, I need you to pull your head, and get your mind right. I don't care about anything else. I need you to win this round. And so I stepped out from underneath the car, and I thought to myself, oh, man, this is my last day working here. I can't believe I just said that. But he went and won that race, so we did pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't think it was me, but I mean, he has so many stories. We could be on here for a decade talking about him.
I'm telling you. Looks like the weather for Joliet's going to be really good. Looks like it's going to have some cloud cover one day around in the 80s. What are some of your favorite things about this track? It seems to be one of the best on the NHRA circuit.
I mean, I do like the track. I like the facility itself, just how it's laid out.
Yeah.
Stands and everything else. It's a great facility, and I hope we continue to race there. But again, Friday night we're running fairly late, so should see some really stout conditions. We have 4 qualifying runs there. NHRA stepped that up for Chicago and Epping. So we'll have 2 sessions on Friday. So hopefully get that first one, get in the show, be solid, and then Friday night really step on it and try to go to number 1. Saturday be earlier, so be a little warmer. But, I mean, you're looking across the board to see some pretty good numbers out of everybody. Everyone's so close and tight. It pushes everybody harder. So it's, it's hard. And to get a good run, it's difficult, and everyone tries. So you're just trying to beat the next guy.
Do you think that this funny car class is the best that we've seen, throughout its history? I mean, from top to bottom, it doesn't matter if it's Terry Haddock or Jason Rupert. You better not go out there and think that, I'm just running those guys. I'll just I'll just roll the helmet up here and we're just going to go A to B and we'll win because it's those guys.
Yeah, it's true. I hate to say it because early in my career here, it's, you'd roll up there and you go against a lower team guy or a real low budget car, and they're struggling to get up there. You're like, all we got to do is we're going to beat them. We're going to go to the next round. But that is not the case anymore. And some of these young kids like, oh, that car only runs 10s. I was like, that car will put you on the trailer. I said, I've been there. I've been there where we messed up and they go do a 420 and put you on the trailer.
Yeah.
You can't discount a single car. I mean, Terry Haddock's been around. Semifinals?
Yes.
I mean, you can't discount anybody.
And he's running in 3s now.
I mean, that's great. And everyone loves seeing that, like awesome. The underdog story. That's what everyone says. He's on a tight budget, but everyone likes to see him do well. He comes over, borrows parts from all the teams, and everyone wants to see everybody race. Everyone wants to see everyone do well and not blow up or hurt themselves or anything like that. But, man, you can't discount a single person out here. There's too many good folks anymore. It sucks.
It really is. It really is. What's the best performing track-wise on the schedule right now, in your opinion, Drag Racing Mayhem says?
No, that's a tough one. It just really depends on the weather conditions.
Right.
That's really solely it.
Right.
John had his career best run here in Charlotte. And, we got lucky on that one. It was a little quick, but, you can argue the fact it went almost to 81.9, but that was track conditions. You threw at it, and it took it.
Yeah.
There's other monster tracks out there. It just depends on the weather. I mean, go back to looking at Epping in past years.
That's
2 years
true.
ago, it was 140 degrees. Last year was 60. So how do you prepare for that? I can't say, we're going to run low 80s in Epping. Well, maybe if it's cold, or it could be 130. It's right. It's a swing.
So I think it was Gainesville 3 years ago is where it had it. That was the year that it rained so much that it was completely muddy everywhere. And then that Sunday morning, it was in the 30s. And as a kid growing up, I always wanted to know what, if you had 30-degree weather or at least in the 40s, what it would do. But I thought about it. The track is too cold.
Yeah. We need at least 70 degrees on the track, ideally. I mean, we go down to 60s, but the car is going to shake. It's not good it's going to break our cars.
How difficult was that year in eliminations? That track was not only rained on. When we got there and I walked in the tower and I looked out, I was like, that track is bald. Like nobody's going to go down this thing. And they were just flying down the racetrack. But how like nerve-wracking was that?
I want to throw up every first round and every Q1, every race. Danny looked at me like, what's wrong with you? He's like, I'm sick. Like, I can't, I'm ace. It's like, we're fine. I'm like, yeah, I'm sick to my stomach. So when you go up to a track like that, and everybody has the same situation.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to hope your record book is deep enough. What kind of conditions do we have? We have track temp. We have the Grippos out there. We have the track specialists, Lanny McGleasy, Chuck's out there. But we can get their data and do our best. Like, well, those conditions can yield a 4 flat, and that's it. So don't try to push it harder. Don't be greedy. Just get down the other track, and hopefully the other guy doesn't get there quicker.
Yeah. Last question. What got you into being a crew chief?
Wrong place, wrong time, bad decisions? No. I've been working on cars since I was about 10 or 12 years old. My dad got me involved with it. I just kind of started working on some street cars, and then I got involved with the engine shop. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I told, hey, I'll pay you guys just to hang out here and watch. And they gave me a job sweeping floors. Then I started learning machines after that, and just one thing evolved after another. Got more involved. Volunteered for a bunch of years on top alcohol dragster cars. I was in the Marine Corps on my days off, or I would take leave and go to the races if they let me. And just a lot of hard work and dedication. You just got to drive and try to learn as much as you possibly can, and then hope the opportunity comes across your way and you don't totally mess it up.
Yeah.
Because it's
sure you're still learning today.
I'm learning every day. I'm not no brilliant guy out here. I'm a freshman still, right? I'm still a new guy out here compared to everyone we're running against. I mean, they have years of experience where I'm still new and I'm still learning. It's difficult, and at the stress level, which I like stress because I've been a team guy my whole life, like a firefighter, Marine Corps, any job I had has always been team related, but the stress is very high because the higher you might get elevated, the smaller the peak gets. Yeah. So there's not 600 jobs in the U.S. of this. There's 60.
That's right.
I mean, then you go down to crew guys or blower guys. So it might be one each team, or there's more jobs on the team working on the car than there are if you get a car chief. Well, that's only one per car. So that you're really getting down. If you messed up, you're not necessarily going to get fired, but you might get moved back or move teams. It's stressful, and I love it. And my wife hates me for it because I stress out too much. And I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about cars, and John calls me. He's like, just random things. Like, what was that about? I was like, we're going to make an adjustment. Or he's thinking about this. He felt on the race car, so we're going to look at it. And he's like, you just never stop thinking about this. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Like, really? When we go camping, boating? But, yeah. I think she likes that we don't have cell phone service. So
Right. Yeah. I'm like that. I love drag racing. NFL is another thing that I also cover, and both are things that I study very closely. But I'm like that with football a lot. Like I really enjoy the X's and O's. I love the chess match between offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, and sometimes I'm just be thinking about stuff and rambling off stuff. And my wife says, you just have footballs and race cars just running through your head all the time.
Yeah. And just real quick, everyone looks at, the job I'm in. Oh, you get make the car go quick. But man, the team guys, think about this stuff. I was talking to the guy who came to our shop the other day. I was like, you look from the ropes, look outside in and see how cool this is. I said, but you don't see all the underlying factors of sitting and doing spark plugs that takes a week for a guy to do to build up enough supply because you have a 60% full, 40% junk. It doesn't meet our quality control.
Wow.
Making the washers, making all the little tiny things to make the car run. So the guy spent hours just getting the parts ready so we can go destroy them in 4 seconds and then do it again.
Yeah.
But they put in the hours. they bust their butts every day. Every team guy out there, they really do. And they're, we get the glory, if you will,
Right.
but those guys live it. They travel. I was on the road. They travel 170 days a year. So it's a lifestyle. It's not just a job. It is a passion for sure.
Yeah. They're the offensive line of the drag racing world.
They are. They're the heartbeat behind it. They just make us look good. We try to make them look good, and John makes us all look good.
Indeed. Well, Tim, I really hope this weekend you guys go down the track 4 times in eliminations, and we get to hear another great interview at the top end.
Bring that trophy home. Hopefully.
Yes. Yes. That would be awesome. And to hear John with another great winning interview that
you
never gets
know
old.
What he's going to say on the interview.
Exactly. Tim, I really appreciate you taking the time, and first time won't be the last time.
Yep. I'll be glad to come back whenever. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
Tim Fabrisi, everybody. What a great show. And before we close, we were just rapidly going through things. I saw, I think it was Lonnie. Let me go. Okay, this one. I didn't put that up because I can answer that for you. So the thing is, they don't want to show an accident and someone has died. And I, not go too deep into it, but I think of Scott Coletta. That was not good for anyone at all. And they caught all of that on ESPN, and they showed it. They replayed it a couple of times. I think we've learned from that. But they have turned away when there's an incident to make sure that the audience does not see someone if they have, been deceased on the top end. That's too much. So that's why they pan away quickly from that, out of respect to, Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. If you don't play any other week, you need to play this week. Okay. Our league code is in the ticker. We welcome all. I am not leaving. We're leading, actually. I think it's Frederick. He's leading. But there's going to be some great prizes here. So Peak has come on board to be a sponsor at this race at the Route 66 Nationals here. And for your overall winners, your top fuel funny car, pro stock class, pro stock motorcycle class winners, they will receive a 50th anniversary John Force diecast funny car, a Peak retro hat, Peak moleskin notebook, Peak earplugs, all delivered in a Peak drawstring bag. And those overall who are 2 through 9, they will also get a Peak retro hat, a moleskin notebook, and earplugs, also in a Peak drawstring bag. Some major prizes on tap for Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. So make sure you guys are paying attention. If you're not signed up, you need to get signed up. It's dragracebracketbonanza.com, I believe. I could be wrong. Somebody, if I'm wrong, put it in the comments. But make sure you guys are there. This stuff is phenomenal. And it just keeps getting better. But this weekend, a 50th anniversary John Force diecast. You know how much that thing's going for? I've seen upwards close to $300. Huge. So shout out to Peak for coming on board. And man, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a lot of fun this weekend. I will throw up also, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm going to put it up there. This is your schedule. You can find this on NHRARacer.com. They always have your schedule. You can also find it on NHRA.com. But obviously, remember, all these times and all these schedules are subject to change. Things happen sometimes. Yeah, I'm really over the moon with the participation that this show has had. We want to thank Pete and Tim Fabrisi for coming on. We had some stars in the comments too. Nicole Clark, as always. We had Courtney Enders in the comments. So I appreciate those who are watching. I appreciate y'all participation. Absolutely, yes. Great thing here. If you're there, there will be a tribute to Don Schumacher, one of the pioneers of this sport, the king of the multi-teams. Yeah, it's going to be fun. And Tony's going to have a tribute skiing to his car. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be fun. Doesn't get any better than that. That's my camera guy, guys. All those shots you see, that's Fred Warner, the linebacker. Man. So tune in. You got the schedule. If we want to support the Fox broadcast, definitely want to do that. We couldn't be in a better place when it comes to Fox, right? We know what the ESPN days were like. I do. Of just continuing to give us new stuff each and every week. That's hard to do. But they find a way. Again, thank you all who tune into this show. Those who will watch it later, I appreciate it. Take the time to share it. Share it in any group that you're in. Also, go over to our Facebook pages and our YouTube page and subscribe. It helps us out. Numbers mean everything when you're looking for sponsorships, and we want to do more with this show. So that's what we're after. And your support, your subscriptions help with that. I appreciate y'all's participation. It's been phenomenal. Really means a lot and makes this whole thing fun. You guys make the show, and you guys really did it today. So thank you so much. Again, this has been the NotBland Show, powered by Everything Nitro, Sports Journey, and Drag Race Bracket Bonanza. I'm Dujane Bland. Until next time, people, see you on next Tuesday. Good night.